The next presentation would be by Joanna Buganik-Pałka from QLock. Promotional sandwich, how to make even a small project tasty.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Hi, my name is Asha, and I wanted to say hi to all of my friends who came here to support me. So it's like 90% of this place. Thank you. As you probably know, I'm sometimes very vocal with my opinions. I don't know why this line is still here. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm working for QLock on a daily basis, so I do it as for a living, but I also support indies, and the thing I wanted to share with you today are based on an experience gathered, well, mainly with the supporting of indies, especially with my husband and the project we called Pałki z Polygonem, but it's not only our presence and supporting indies within the Polygon scientific circle, but we also supported, during the last year, we supported a lot of indie projects just for fun. So I'm going to share with you some of experience within the fun projects. Okay, so let's start. Is it going to work or not? Or maybe not. So I better use this one. Is it going to work? It's not going to work. Ah! Yeah, it works. Okay, so that's cool. Let's start with the marketer's role in the development process. And I would say this is a very important part for me because once we start, when we see the project, usually it's a sort of developed project. And the biggest fun is from the projects that are at the early stage, when you can really have the influence and evaluate things and measure whether the project will be good for marketing purposes or not. And it all depends on your approach, because the truth is that everything starts with the project. If you'd like to be the full indie, like the musicians used to be, if you're totally sure that you're not going to sell the product, probably you don't need me. So you got to have your vision and just realize it. But once you want to execute sort of promotion, marketing, and sales, it's really good to ask someone or to try to find a different perspective at the early stage and the very beginning of the project. Why? Because the marketer is the one that's on the right. I'm this person and probably my colleagues who really take care for the marketing of products, not only the indie products, but all the products. Because sometimes even for AAAs, you got to readjust some of the features of the game to be able to promote them. So this stage is really crucial because once the marketer approaches the development team, he'll be able to give you some insight from the outsider's perspective. That's really important to find out whether your ideas are really sellable, because that's the thing we're talking about. And can you afford it? Of course, you can approach someone who will support you, giving you hints or some ideas. And this early project, this early stage of the production process is, well, not very expensive. It only requires some of the idea, the vision. So even if you're working with a good marketer, probably this kind of advice is not something like totally expensive. And you can also approach some of the tips and hints. You can implement it in your work, and you can check how to find out how would the marketer look at my project. What can you get? Well, you can get a lot. You can have a different vision and a different perspective that will simply, I would say, that can completely destroy your idea, the initial idea. Because sometimes marketers looking at the project are easily able to identify strengths and, well, those points that will be the project's weaknesses. And you can also, you of course, can implement all the ideas and all the hints. You can also omit it and still follow your vision. And I would recommend following your vision, but with kind of voice just inside your head. And how to see this different perspective. So let's have a look. It's still not working. Okay. Before we start with all the tips, I will try to share with you, or maybe these are not tips, rather questions. we've been working and operating in still changing environment. So we're not only within the games industry, and we follow not only the trends applicable to the games industry, but we also have to be aware of everything that is happening around us. So the first thing called in many presentations and cases in indie apocalypse, I wouldn't call it that way. I call it the indie invasion, which means not only a lot of products available on the market. Well, I don't have to give you the figures because you know that we have like 5,000 games released last year. And in comparison to 2015, that's a huge growth. But the truth is that this industry has been changing in a way of being more professional. So not only everyone can approach Steam and have the game published one way or the other, but the truth is that this huge, flourishing industry has been growing so fast because a lot of people know more. They know how to do games. More projects maybe are not successful, but we have more good games. And it's not that easy to be a star, but there are several ways to think in a star-ish way, which is possible. And although everything changes around you, you still can catch the trends and try to find yourself, trying to find your place in this overwhelming reality. So one of the main influences that we usually emit is a change of our habits. I'll give just one of them. So the Google Trends and the change of our searching habits. What about them? Well, the truth is that a few years ago, we were so focused on having the unique words, those that will distinguish our projects from the others. And also the ASO algorithms are focused on having the unique words. But the truth is we don't search words or the terms we've been looking for that way anymore. What we've been searching now are the phrases. So typing to Google, in most of the cases, we don't type even the title of the game. We type the communication of the game. We type the words that are inside of our head, and if we want to find something, for example, a medicine or whatever, we will type, in most cases, the full sentence. That's what Google recently discovered. Well, they discovered it years ago, I believe, because they've been looking at our habits constantly. But not only we make more mistakes, but also we've been searching for long terms. So these long sentences are also a basis of communication. So what stays inside of your head? I'm pretty sure that some of the games, the very popular ones, like, for example, the Frostpunk, probably the search terms for these games will be not only the exact term, but all the connotations and all the words that are around this term. So it's really good to have it in mind and to remember about this way of constructing the communication of the game. And also, our habits have been changing. We use multi-platform communication. We use many platforms, even for playing. We are sort of swingers now. We're not focused and so devoted to one type of consuming entertainment and also the communication. Because communication and entertainment are very close. And everything that happens in communication actually influences directly the entertainment. And we also have swinging habits. It appears that we can be somehow casuals and hardcore at the same time. So it's really good to remember about that. And we can also be geek, hippie, vegan, loving burgers. Why not? Because all the consumption models that we have now are completely different than those focused on supplying your needs years ago. So it also completely changed our way of communication for the marketing and selling products. And also the mobile growth, which is significant. I'm not telling here about the mobile games, but the mobile growth changed our habits within buying things. So while we're thinking about communication, we also have to think about mobile buying, because shopping with a mobile is growing so fast that you cannot omit this channel. You can't leave it alone. You will have to be aware of the simplification in this channel, and it's really good to remember about that. And simplification of language, and at the same time, a sort of extension, We're gonna talk about this later, but the truth is that implementing emotions to language wasn't that easy a long time ago, because all the figures given, all the descriptive way of giving emotions in your communication is a sort of difficult thing. Language, written language, usually is very straight. But giving emojis and all the emoticons and memes enabled us to express easily our emotions, and that influenced our communication. We also simplified our communication. The phrases are shorter. We moved phones to writing communicators. That's the thing. To express emotions in writing, we have to use something that could replace the real emotions. And of course, the fast communication and communication channels enables us to be still online and to have immediate feedback. Also for the focus testing, which is very important, and we'll talk about this later. Okay, so this picture, just an explainer, that's the Chopin's poster, and it actually reminds me a sort of approach which is based on the idea. Something can be very simple, but when we start out to work within the project, wow, is everything okay? Yeah, cool. That was a beer. When we start working with the project at the early stage, we got to focus on the idea. The idea itself is crucial for everything that happens with the marketing and promotion later on, because the idea itself has a huge potential for being promoted if it's good and based on a strong belief of the creator that, of course, he wants to create this kind of game, but also that the product is not weak in any matter, and it will actually find someone who will buy it. But the truth is, if the product itself is not good, you can create a bunch of communicational phrases. You can create a huge campaign, the marketing, promotion, whatever you want. But it will only, in terms of having such an immediate feedback, it will only expose the product. So if you expose something, it's also weak if it has any hidden wrong features. Okay, so when I start working with a product, usually I start with the very basis. I'm not involved in making any design docs, and I'm not a game developer. But when I'm working with a project, I go very deep into the concept. So whenever I start working with a game, especially indie game, but also with a big project, which I'm happily to work with sometimes, I start with a model of creating communication on a simple and very clear pillars. And sometimes the self-determination theory is very helpful. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this concept. That's the concept that involves video game design within the theory of self-determination, the psychological one. So what Przybylski, Rigby, and Ryan did, they gathered a lot of data on the basis of this theory, and they tried to find out whether people who play games in a certain type of games, whether they feel 3 pillars of self-determination. So this is the need of competence, which is a basis. So we want to be valued for the thing we're doing right. That's the need of competence in games. The second pillar of this kind of approach is the autonomy. So the autonomy is something that you feel when the game rewards you with making decisions. You feel responsible. You feel that, well, every move in the game, or not every move, but that your moves and your decisions make a difference. Of course, it's not a matter of very sophisticated systems. Sometimes you have just the storyline is really good and you created different scenarios, but the feeling of being responsible for something, of having the autonomy also, it's also applicable to sandbox games. If you have this, it's really good for the certain type of games. And this third pillar is a relatedness. So relatedness is based on a very, very simple need of being attached to someone. So this need of attachment can be fulfilled in games, for example, by relation with the other players or relation with the AI. But I won't be evolving on this theory because it's very helpful with the peer, but for the design matters, well, I think you know more about this than I do. But the truth is, sometimes it helps me to start with a project. I'm looking for three pillars. Sometimes they are based in this theory. They're always something to start with. Well, am I okay with time? Yeah, we're okay. Okay, so the next step for me usually is looking for benchmarks and lookalikes. Why? There is this saying that probably if your product doesn't look like something else, or your game is completely different than the other games, and you can't find benchmarks and lookalikes, probably this game won't sell. Why? Because maybe there are no customers for this kind of products. I don't actually agree in 100% with this, but well, there are several exceptions, and sometimes you can find unicorns that developers invent, and they're totally 100% sure they're going to pursue it, and they're going to evolve this project because they believe in it, and that's pretty cool. Because if you have this freedom, you're completely indie. You can go your own way. That's your decision. But whenever you want to sell your game, it's really good to, at the early stage, the very beginning of the production process, even if you're working with your friends or over hours, it's really good to be honest with yourself. If you'd like to sell the game or not. Am I even considering that probably in 10 years I'll be able to sell this game or have any benefit from it? It's really good to be honest with yourself and to give answers. Even write it down. Even if you think you try to cheat yourself. No, I'm doing it only for fun. Yes, are you really doing it for fun? But in 2 months, if the project is successful and you see that something is okay with the product, that you can actually do games, it applies to the first project in many cases, you would like to sell it. So you can think about a few things and do the homework before, and probably you will be well prepared. So lookalikes are good because we can look not only for any resemblances or being similar to something, but you can search traffic for the certain type of product or the game. You can spy. You can do a lot of things, like within these tools. I'm not sure how many of you use the Google Trends, because the basic form for Google Trends is pretty trivial and obvious. But when you go deeper, you see a lot of links related to the subject you've been pasting. So you simply paste a word, and you receive a lot of links. Then you can go further. You can see what are the references, what are the next links, or what are the themes related to. So it's really important for the further steps, because then you can even estimate whether the subject is popular or not. If the search word is okay, or if the search sentence is okay. Unfortunately, Google Trend did not implement this feature of having the long sentences yet, but I believe they're going to do it. It doesn't work that good. So the second tool I use very often is Google Correlate, which is cool because when you even thinking about selling your game sometime, maybe in 1, 2 months, 2, 3 years, it doesn't matter. It's of course very difficult to predict any things happening, I don't know, in more than half a year. But it's really good to, for example, have an idea of the markets you're going to approach. So if you have this idea, Google Correlate will let you find in an easy way how the word or term is performing in a specific area of our globe. You can also spy your benchmarks and lookalikes within the similar web. I'm pretty sure you know the tool. You can use Facebook. You can use the Google AdWords Planner. It has this cool feature. It gives you the display planner, which enables you to see when you paste the website of the project you've been spying, you receive a lot of links and referrals. Because, well, similar web within the non-paid version is not that accurate with the references. But Google AdWords and this display planner is pretty accurate. It's really cool. You can use Facebook lookalike audiences. So you can for example, you plan a fake advertising and you try to target it to funds of certain subject, and then you receive the estimated number of the audience, and probably you'll have also insight in the demography and a lot of different data. You can use Influencer GG. This is deeper. If you're planning, for example, that your game probably will be playable by influencers and Twitchers, cool, use it. It gives you reference channels to the games, the most popular, unfortunately. But if you've been planning to do something which is similar to something else, it's really cool to use it. You have Brand24, SoulTrender. You have also Import.io and other tools. My next step, when I'm working with the early stage project, is to establish the 3 features of the game. So these 3 features are a sort of verification of your idea. And I base on 3 pillars. Because the truth is that within the simplification of communication, you can't easily remember a lot of things. So when I see this description of games where are several features, or 21 of them, I want to read them, I want to remember, but I never do. Not because I'm stupid, but because our memory patterns has changed. And the pattern is easy for 3 things to remember, but more than 3, it's really hard to have them still in your head. I usually start with something, even if this first shot at the early stage is not accurate. If I'm going to change it later, that's okay. But it's really good to do this exercise. The game claim, the first thing, something that will distinguish the game, that will make a difference, and will disturb the future customer. For example, well, this is a sort of punchline. It's a claim, it's something big. The second thing can give the insight in the game. This is the main feature. Something that will explain to players what the game is or what it's not. Actually, it's better to explain what the game is. And the third thing is to engage at the last stage. And that's a sort of reason to remember, to be close to the selling opportunity. Because the truth is that the last stage is something connected deeply with the emotions. We're going to talk about this in a minute. And even Sony recently, doing the CSS conference, revealed their new approach in marketing. They're going to sell at the last stage. Why? Because this is the decision making. We can do a lot of research. We can do the the reverse repo. We can search online, try to buy things offline or in a different way. We can do a lot of research and things. But the final decision depends on the third pillar. And we also have to know our customer. We have a lot of insight. What changes in communication give us also a lot of cool features, which is more insight, and the insight which is applicable not only to the specific people, but we can also have the crowd sympathies. We can estimate how do people react to certain type of products, and it's really good to gather all this data. Because sometimes we have our own imaginative vision of something which is verified by data, and it appears to be completely different than we expected at the beginning. And we have two-side communication. It means that we not only see the communication of people to the titles, all the titles to the people, but we see both of the sides of communication, especially in social media. While searching and scrolling social media of your lookalikes and benchmarks, you can get a lot of info. You can even see the features which are liked by the audience or disliked. You have the constant feedback, which is cool because you receive info immediately. For example, if you ask someone if he likes your game or concept art, you will have the immediate response. But you gotta be aware that this response is based on a very basic features and a very rough view. So it's not a deep insight. That's something you have to think about. But this feedback usually is immediate. And also the swinging habits. You gotta be aware of it because people, they like one thing or they like another, the day after, they easily forget. You can establish your communication too early and then be forgotten. So that's the thing we have to remember about. And the last thing, which is really very, very important, are simplified emotions. So implementing emotions and emojis in language is a thing that might look a little bit silly at the first sight. Because what does it mean? Well, actually, the social media enabled, because of the simplification of communication and communicators texting instead of, I don't know, having a call, changed our habits. And we were no longer able to implement emotions in our language. That was the early stage. Then we started something. Emojis appeared, and emojis are a sort of extension to language, but they were not easily recognizable. Even if we could quantify them, the real quantification is this one. By putting any of these faces, we can be easily spotted by Facebook, also measured by the tools like Trender. But this influences not only, well, the measuring of social media and sentiments, but it also gives us an insight to what's happening with the emotions. It gives the quantification of emotions. So it gives us categories of emotions. If we fit into the category of a certain emotion, probably it will be easily recognizable by your target group. But if you're not in the specific type of emotion, probably it won't be that easy to identify the exact feeling. So the focus testing. Why? When we have this constant feedback, we can easily gather data and info from our customers, future customers. Even at the early stage, we can judge if people like this kind of concept art or whatever. Or would you like to play a game that looks like that? Usually I'm telling my friends that it's better to have 20 people measured or to show your project to 20 people who you will see face to face than having a lot of people or a huge group which will be somewhere far away from you. Because within the indie environment, we got to be aware of having few things in mind. Like, for example, well, we can afford it, right? That's pretty obvious. You can go to your friends or ask them if they like this kind of game or not. But collecting feedback is kind of difficult because we have one. If you have more than 2 people judging your game, you will have this influencer impact. So someone can dictate the opinion to the others. It's also not good to show the product which is totally bugged because probably the respondents will focus only on bugs, not on the features. And it's really good to have it face-to-face, one-to-one, face-to-face, and focus on the real things and to ask the right questions. You can ask, do you think this part of game is too difficult? Or you can ask, can you find any difficulties in this part of the game? There is a difference. So the manner you've been asking questions makes a difference. And we're almost there. Because I really believe that if you want to create a game you really like the one you're gonna spend your life with, you're gonna create it after hours, you have a lot of passion, I think you should do it. You can try to think as a marketer or like a marketer. You can try to work with someone, but never be 100% following their directions. Always be aware that your vision is everything. Even if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You can collect as much data as you want. But at the end, it's your decision to go within the concept you've invented at the beginning to adjust it or to implement something that the marketer advises. But be aware that that's the one on the left side or your right side. That's the one who is looking from a totally different perspective. So I think that's it. If you want to stay in touch, just contact me. Or any questions? Thank you. I love my friends.